Iowa's known for farming, but who are these farmers? I don't know a ton of young farmers or people in general that are looking to get into it. So who's going to feed us? Who's going to feed the next generation?
That's Lawrencia Rogers speaking to me from her car. She's a beginning farmer, passionate about growing food here in Iowa. She was selected to be a fellow in a program run by Iowa Valley Resource Conservation and Development, or RC&D, focused on helping new farmers prepare for owning their own operations. She was in the program 1 week when USDA grant funding abruptly ended.
I'm not quite sure what would be a good use of taxpayer money if not educating people to continue growing our food.
The grant Rogers was a part of was called the Increasing Land, Capital, and Market Access Program, or LCM for short. It addressed an issue that everyone involved in food and farming agrees is a problem. I'm Beth Hoffman, author, journalist, and farmer. At the Iowa Farm Table is a production of the Iowa Food System Coalition, a group of more than 50 organizations in Iowa working to make the food system more just, equitable, and sustainable. So the problem I was talking about in agriculture, it's that we as a nation are not cultivating the next crop of farmers. Farmers today are aging out, while those under 35 comprise less than 10% of all those farming the land.
We also don't have a lot of resources or systems set up in place to support Iowa's food farmers.
That's Katie Doss, the state coordinator at the Sustainable Iowa Land Trust, also known as SILT, the other group in Iowa that had received an LCM grant. Doss is pointing out a second major issue here in Iowa, and that's the fact that very few acres in the state are dedicated to growing food.
0.04% of Iowa's harvest cropland is used to grow fruit, vegetables, nuts, and berries, which is around 9,399 acres, and that represents a really small portion of Iowa's farmland. It is incredibly difficult to find the right person, the right infrastructure for food farming. It is very much finding a needle in the haystack.
It might be a needle in a haystack, but that doesn't mean it's not worth finding the right farmer to farm the right piece of ground. And when you find someone like Rogers, a person excited to grow nutritious food for the community, but without the land to do so, we want to do everything we can to keep them farming.
Programs like this are really important to help level the playing field to make it accessible for these farmers, since it already isn't the norm in agriculture, and sometimes you just need that extra support and business investment to be able to have a successful business.
During COVID, the global food supply chain came sharply into question. Supermarket shelves emptied and prices rose. It was at that time that hopeful members of the National Young Farmers Coalition worked to get a pilot program started through USDA for new farmers. In the years that followed, members of Congress, including Iowa Representative Zach Nunn, introduced legislation aimed at creating more permanent versions of the program. In 2023, 2 Iowa organizations were funded. Over 5 years, Iowa Valley RC&D was to receive $2.8 million and SILT $1.8. Iowa Valley RC&D Director and farmer Jason Grimm explains.
This project was primarily focused on beginning farmers, roughly their 3 to 5 years of experience level. It was meant to provide a stepping stone from people that had some experience, whether working on another farm or personal experience growing up on a farm, to helping them establish a business and launching them into their establishment and success the first couple of years of business.
Grimm says that before the LCM grant, his organization had an apprenticeship program for those who wanted to farm but had no experience. They also had a program helping people access land to run their own businesses. But
we had nothing in between. And so this program, actually similar to like a journeyman or a certified apprenticeship for like an electrician or some other kind of trade. In this situation, we created this fellowship with a curriculum. We hired these individuals as staff of our organization. We provided them a plot of the land. And then as part of the training program, they started to think about what a business looked like and use these 2 years actually to try out selling.
Lawrencia Rogers was one of those fellows. She was thrilled she was picked for the program.
So I was like to the moon, because if I can be honest, land access was just a pipe dream, like something I didn't think I was ever going to be able to do. I grew up in poverty. I wouldn't say I've necessarily like broken away from that yet. You just kind of wonder if the cycle's going to repeat or if that's something you are going to climb out of, especially with lots of like dead-end opportunities and dead-end jobs.
Rogers is right. If your family does not already own land, it's almost impossible to get in. Only 5% of all land in Iowa is owned by those under 44 years of age, and almost 2/3 of farmland is controlled by those over 55. In other words, much of Iowa will change hands in the coming years, but mostly to those in their families. More than 50% of Iowa's land is owned by people who do not farm and lease it out to those who do.
This opportunity had all the safety nets built in. So it had a livable wage attached to it. It had mentors for both business and farming. It came with benefits, including health insurance, dental, vision, free life insurance. They had really thought about everything. I felt like it was a fail-safe. Like I would be really supported, just in every aspect. Yeah, really a one-of-a-kind opportunity.
It was a one-of-a-kind, fail-safe program that, well, failed because the funding was pulled by the Trump administration. The cancellation letters to the group cited, quote, discriminatory preferences based on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and wasteful spending that did little to further lawful agricultural land purchases, end quote. It's true. Almost all of the 50 grants awarded around the country use terms like BIPOC for Black, Indigenous, and people of color in their description of target audiences. Many programs were created specifically to encourage Black or Native applicants. Veterans were the focus of other programs. And yet, these are the same groups that research has shown have been discriminated against by USDA for decades. Programs like LCM were openly trying to address some of those uneven playing fields, ones that have left many communities without any generational wealth, like land ownership. In the U.S. today, 98% of the land is owned by those defining themselves as white in the census. SILT Executive Director Brianna Horsey made it clear the cuts will not only impact her organization. Both Iowa Valley RC&D and SILT were partnering with other organizations like We Arose and Global Greens, and with small businesses like graphic designers and printers.
I believe that this hurts all of Iowa. They weren't abstract contracts that we entered into. They're real jobs, they're real services, they're real people, and they're doing real work in Iowa communities. It's not a small amount. You know, this is millions of dollars that would have directly supported Iowans, and it's real economic loss. All of this money would have stayed in Iowa.
Jason Grimm of Iowa Valley RC&D added that although the grants seem like a lot of money going to very few people, the impact would be huge in rural America.
Well, if I had 15 new businesses in my small community of Williamsburg start, that would have a tremendous impact to our economy, to our school district. Any small town would love to have 15 new people move into their community. So in my opinion, that's not small. If you look at it nationally, yeah, 15 is small, but when you multiply that times 50 projects across the country, that is a really big impact.
USDA and the Trump administration have talked a lot over the past year about wanting to support regenerative agriculture, healthy foods, and a revitalization of farming in America. And in February of 2026, Trump approved a $12 billion bridge payment to commodity farmers as temporary relief from market disruptions. But that amount is 40 times the entirety of the LCM program, designed to help new farmers in all 50 states. And while congressional delegates like Iowa's Zach Nunn are trying to create more programs they call permanent for new farmers in the Farm Bill, the fact is that the bill has been delayed now for 5 years.
While I want to pursue my dreams and passions, and I promised myself that I wouldn't give up, and this is where I would make my big break and really put the rubber to the road, I also have to be realistic and think about the 6-year-old who doesn't deserve to have instability, and can I continue farming, and am I going to find the right opportunity? You know, if I have to put this on hold for some time, I guess I have to put it on hold.
What's being lost here isn't just a grant program. It's a pathway for people like Lawrencia Rogers and hundreds of other beginning farmers trying to build something that Iowa's food system says it needs, but too often struggles to support. Again, Brianna Horsey.
We want Iowa's congressional delegation to exercise some oversight to ensure that USDA does honor their commitments, because food security affects every Iowan. And these farmers weren't asking for a handout. They're asking for a fair chance to build a life on the land, to do some of the hardest work, one of the hardest jobs, and to grow food for their communities.
At a time when Iowa is facing one of the largest farmland transitions in history, the question isn't whether we need new farmers, it's whether we're willing to invest in them. Special thanks this week to Lawrencia Rogers, Katie Doss, Jason Grimm, and Brianna Horsey. Be sure to get in touch with your congressional delegates and let them know how badly Iowa needs new farmers and that the government should fulfill their prior commitments to them. John Hoagland and Tommy Hexter edited this episode. You've been listening to At the Iowa Farm Table, a production of the Iowa Food System Coalition. If you like this or any of our episodes, please like them in your podcast player and tell a friend or two. You can sign up for the Iowa Food System Coalition newsletter by going to our website at iowafoodSystemCoalition.org. And, of course, you can follow us on social media. I'm Beth Hoffman. Thank you so much for listening.